Welcome to the Level Up podcast presented by The Ultimate Gamer, a show that features conversations with the trailblazers, thought leaders, risk takers, decision makers, celebrities, athletes, and investors who are defining the gaming and eSports space. On Level Up, we take a journey into this dynamic industry and start to decode and reveal who and what's making news. It's about connecting, and it's about sharing the stories and vision of the people who make gaming and esports a global phenomenon. As we do in every episode, we'd like to thank The Ultimate Gamer as the visionary and catalyst behind Level Up. The Ultimate Gamer is an esports and gaming, entertainment, technology, culture, and lifestyle organization with the intention of discovering the best gamer in the world. Connecting and celebrating gamers and gaming is at the core of The Ultimate Gamer's mission. And now, please welcome your host, student of the game and connector to the esports community, Tommy Knapp.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tommy Knapp, and this is an all-new episode of the Level Up podcast presented by The Ultimate Gamer. On today's show, I have a conversation with Diana DJ Moreau, Senior Director of Partnerships at Games for Change. In this capacity, DJ leads business development efforts, manages strategic partnerships, and oversees esports initiatives. The two of us spent a few minutes struggling with some technical difficulties. Welcome to the new world. But once we finally resolved our audio issues, DJ brought me up to speed on connected communities, the Blue Angels, the Demon Deacons of Wake Forest, social impact themes, and much more. DJ has worked at the Entertainment Software Association as Director of Third Party and Legislative Outreach with LRNG, a games and learning initiative based at Electronic Arts, and at Events DC as Head of Esports. She is focused on building cross-sector partner networks, both in the US and internationally, to drive participation in the Games for Change Festival, Student Challenge, and other programs. The work she is doing today will have a massive impact on the world we wake up in tomorrow. Get ready to solve some real-world issues as we spend some time with DJ Moreau. So thank you. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, sure.
So where are you right now? Are you in Annapolis? I thought I saw that in your LinkedIn.
Yeah, I live in Annapolis, Maryland.
How long have you been there?
About 5 years.
Okay. I love it. I think it's beautiful. It's kind of quiet, right?
It's kind of quaint. It's got a big naval academy that Blue Angels just flew over earlier today as like a surprise commencement.
For like one of the local high schools?
For the Naval Academy, the U.S. Naval Academy.
Okay. That's nice. Yeah, I used to be in the travel and tourism industry back in another life, in a previous life. And so we used to take a lot of groups down I'm from Syracuse, New York. So we used to take a lot of groups from Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, down to Washington, D.C. And oftentimes we'd go to Annapolis just for, something else to do and to see the Naval Academy. It's beautiful over there.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to obviously jump around, and we're going to talk a lot about esports, but I also want to know a little bit just more. You're in Annapolis now. You're a Wake Forest grad. I used to do college campus tours as well, and Wake Forest was one of the college campuses that we would visit when we did the ACC, when we did North Carolina State, Virginia. We did Wake Forest. It's one of the smaller universities in the country, right?
Yeah, 4,000 people.
Okay.
But I grew up in the DC area, in the suburbs in Gaithersburg, Maryland.
That's where my sister lives.
Get out of town.
Yeah. Yeah. So we come up there every once in a while. She did live there. She lives in Reston, Virginia now, but she lived in Gaithersburg for a while.
Yeah. I went to Montgomery County Public School, Watkins Mill. I'm a proud Wolverine, class of 2000.
Okay.
We brought the ruckus, apparently. It was
Right. So how did you choose Wake Forest?
It's funny. I did cheerleading in high school. So when I was a JV cheerleader, I remember seeing this other cheerleader that lived in my neighborhood. Her name was Maureen. I thought she was so cool, and she was going to Wake Forest.
Right.
And then I was like, I should go to Wake Forest. And it wasn't that simple, but she kind of put the seed in my head. And when we were looking at other schools, the Carolinas just seemed to be a nice fit, where it's far enough away from home, but not too close to home, and a beautiful rolling hills, Southern hospitality, I was like, this just
That is always seems to be one of the things I think for both the kids and the parents, where it's far enough away but not too far away.
Yeah.
You know? What's interesting for me, because my kids are 14, 11 now, so we're thinking about that. We're thinking about school. And if either one of them goes to, for instance, I live in Fort Lauderdale, if either one of them goes to Florida State, that's in state, but it'll take me like 7 or 8 hours to get there. Whereas if they went to like Boston College or Harvard or MIT, it would only take me 2.5, 3 hours by flight.
Yeah.
So sometimes even if they're further away, they might really be closer, depending on how you travel, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. Or how
Yeah.
fast you drive. I have some bad tickets.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you a couple questions just on some things that you post on Twitter, because I found them interesting. When we first went into the pandemic, like in late March, you had posted something on Minecraft. What are your thoughts about? I mean, my kids are on all the time. I think it's a great game. It's one of the most popular games in the world. What do you think about the game itself? And then how does it? We'll kind of jump right into, I guess, because that correlates probably pretty well to a lot of the things that you're doing with Games for Change. So, what was the post about? And that was when we first hit the pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, Minecraft is just, endless creativity for young people. It's a space where they can go and play and connect with their friends even, or their classmates. So it was, I think when the pandemic first hit, everyone was just looking for existing solutions that they could either modify or, use immediately, while everyone else was trying to get curriculum online or get supplies to kids. And, Minecraft is already in a lot of schools as well. So, it does become an accessibility question as long as you have a computer and have access to, to your account, you're able to get in and play. But, Minecraft is just a tremendous tool for young people to learn, to play, to connect with their friends. So it accomplishes a lot of the things that, people were sort of missing as it related to education and connecting. And
it's one of those games that I like to have parents know about. If they don't know much about gaming and they just think gaming is a bunch of kids going around either playing Madden or NBA 2K, like sports titles, or it's shooters, you look at Minecraft and it's completely a whole new set of rules. And it goes across education. And I see my son do it all the time. And I see the engineering and the architecture and just the way his mind works and the way he's able to build in kind of a Lego universe, but on the computer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can learn to code. You can, create things. I mean, I have a 2.5-year-old and she's already, wanting me to build stuff with her and create stuff. So, it's neat to see people do that. Young people do that on a digital space as well.
So you already have her at 2.5. You already have her on the computer.
I don't have her on Minecraft. She does play some games on ABC Mouse.
Okay. So for that age group, I'd love to know some of those titles. What are some of the things that you suggest? Because there's parents, I'm blessed, right? In a sense where my kids are 11 and 14. So I can basically say, hey, go do this, go do that. And they can pretty much take care of themselves during the day while I'm on Zoom conference calls and podcasts. But for yourself, a 2.5-year-old, you can't just say, hey, go do this for 6 hours.
No. I don't think she can do anything for 6 hours, even if I wanted her to. But no, ABC Mouse has games and basically a learning platform for kids that are like 2 to 8. And then they also have an adventure academy for high schoolers. And that's sort of a newer platform that they just recently launched. But it's a way for sort of personalized learning for young kids to go in and just start, she's popping balloons that are red and, or.
But you're learning about colors that way. And learning about numbers and letters. Is that free?
Yeah, with COVID right now it is.
Okay. So then a second thing that I saw that you posted, which will really, I think, translate.
I can't believe you read my Twitter, by the way. I'm like,
Twitter, LinkedIn, anywhere I can find information.
Yeah.
But you posted something, this is like back in April, and this is really cool. And I think, again, speaks to very much what you guys are doing, Games for Change, which I want to get into deeper. But a protein puzzle game turns up 99 ways to confound coronavirus. So you posted something about, and it looked like it was a game about proteins. Do you remember posting that?
I do. Thank God. Zoran Popovich is probably most famous for the game called Fold It. And he also launched this game, but Fold It was an AIDS protein that was put into a game. And it was a protein that was troubling scientists for a decade. They couldn't figure out how to manipulate it. And when they were outsourcing it to gamers were able to hack a solution that folded the protein that they could take back to the lab and replicate. So it was a pretty big breakthrough in AIDS research. And he sort of did the same thing, but with the coronavirus as a way to help, expedite the learning that scientists can have on the virus.
That's amazing. Is there any way to learn more about that, or to find out, like could somebody just go in and start?
Yeah, anyone can just
game?
play it. Yeah. I don't know like the web page off the top of my head to plug it right now, but I could get back to you.
Yeah, no, because that'd be amazing. I'd love to have my kids working on that, because again, I mean, there's no better way than real experience in real time events, current events that are happening, and if they could be part of something that could potentially be a cure, I mean, how amazing would that be?
Yeah, I mean, what gamers really offer is, they think outside the box, they're problem solving, they're trying to do things over and over again until they win. That power of like failing forward. So it's like, it kind of hits the heart of most gamers, and it's obviously a meaningful problem to be working on.
Oh my God, it's fantastic. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about that later when we talk about some of the things you had in the student challenge for Games for Change. But can you walk us through your history, just a little bit of your history going into leaving Wake Forest and jumping into whatever career path you chose, and then how that took you to, I think it was eSports Software Association, and then maybe kind of go from there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I was like most people, maybe graduating college. I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I actually enjoyed doing an independent study right on my tail end of leaving Wake in cancer research. So I actually spent some time in a clinic organizing clinical trials for cancer patients.
Okay.
So working with the doctor, the families, and then the patients. And, in a trial, you have to do a lot of extra steps, whether it's extra blood work, surveys, just sort of different protocols.
Okay.
So worked in that, and honestly got a little burnt out, I think. I realized if I kept working hard, I wasn't going to just become a doctor, and it was exhausting.
And this is early 2000s, 2005, 2010?
Yeah, I graduated college in 2005.
Okay.
So did that for about 3 years, randomly transferred into like a dental office, and met a patient in that dental office that worked at the Entertainment Software Association, ESA. Okay. And it just sounded cool and fun. And I took a little bit of a not pay, but like a step backwards, I guess, in my career. So it probably was a pay decrease. But it was on like a whole new trajectory. And that was more than 10 years ago. So did
they have a role for you? Or when you were talking to this person, did they say you'd be a great fit here? Or once you heard about it, right, then how did you actually land the job? Yeah,
they kind of just thought that I would be a good fit. They needed some extra help. So I started out as a legislative assistant, which was basically just, a lot of the busy work, taking notes during meetings, scheduling calls, taking first drafts of stuff, sort of bottom of the totem pole work that wasn't super exciting, but it, it had me at the table. I was learning, what the industry, so ESA, to back up, represents the top video game developers and publishers. So Nintendo, okay, Sony, Microsoft, EA, Disney, Time Warner, Ubisoft. It's got the big folks at the table.
Yeah.
So got to understand the different cultures of the organizations, what the different were, or even about games themselves. I mean, I think in my interview I talked about playing Tetris with my sister and like Mario Brothers, but beyond that,
yeah, but those are great things. Those are positives. Check. So the ESA then, there's a lot of advocacy there, or is it best practices? And what is their role? Are there a lot of people there? Where are they located?
They're located in DC. There's about 35 people that work there. They're probably known for E3. Everyone knows about the big video game trade show. That's owned and operated by ESA.
Okay.
That is usually in LA every year. ESA is in DC because it's really one of its main core functions is to also advocate on a policy level. So working with federal legislators and state legislators across the country on different policy issues. So, yeah, I mean, I was in Senator Blumenthal's office the day after Newtown happened and had just an awful conversation
Right.
about why video games aren't to blame. And, and I think from there, we got to work on more of this kind of games for good side and leveraging the power of games beyond just entertainment, which is, makes sense why I'm at Games for Change now, because I think in that moment, the industry collectively kind of came together more than it had in the past to think about ways to be a part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Right. And what year was this again? This is 2015-ish?
When was the Newtown? Yeah. Something like that. I don't remember when Sandy Hook.
Okay.
Was it 12, 13?
Yeah. I don't remember either. But so you stayed at ESA for a little while after that before you made the move to Games for Change. And was there something in the interim?
Oh yeah, I stayed at ESA for about 5 years. Okay. So I was able to kind of work my way into a role that was director of third party and legislative outreach, which really managed all of these different groups, worked at the Department of Education, worked with the President's Council on Fitness, Sports, Nutrition, worked with the Outdoor Foundation, worked with, different, really like anyone. I was like, who wants to work with video games? Let's figure this out. And then one of the projects that we got was a $25 million grant from Gates and MacArthur Foundation. And that was to make educational video games. The hypothesis really was, if we take the best IP and the best content from a studio like Electronic Arts and take the best educators and try to make, fun video games that are in education, then maybe we can really bring this kind of market to life more. So it lived at Electronic Arts. I was able to work remote, but go out to EA's Redwood Shores campus fairly frequently. And we found it was, about 3 years into it, just very hard to sell to schools.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? Just because technology? Because again, it's something new, so teachers don't want to. Was it the administration or the teachers that had to be sold, or both?
Yeah, really both. I mean, maybe in this environment, it would have been a better landscape and moment to drive it forward. It might. I think people still need a lot of education and on using games in education. I mean, we were modding the game with Common Core competencies so that all the teachers were getting this assessment data back. And we basically modded SimCity, EA SimCity. We modded Plants for Zombies, Words with Friends that Zynga donated. We had Take-Two Interactive offered Civilization 5 for us to mod. So it was a fairly big step for AAA companies to be handing over their basically their children,
right, yeah,
IP to say, here you go,
do good with this, let's go,
hack it, yeah.
But it didn't take hold at that time. Where's that program now?
It merged with LRNG, which was another sort of startup nonprofit funded by MacArthur Foundation, where it was making a educational learning platform, all based around connected learning. So I don't know if you want me to go into all that, but connected learning, I will say, is incredible. I mean, MacArthur Foundation spent a lot of money and time looking at, the importance of youth being connected to their passion, a peer group, and a pathway. And those three things don't happen very much in school. And so it's trying to be more intentional about that experience for young people.
Yeah,
outside of the classroom.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. It's very important. To learn anything. I mean, if you have a passion for something, it's so much easier to learn it. So if you're connected, if you're
realize you're learning.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like a great program. And I had this conversation with somebody the other day. about the way things are spelled. So LRNG basically means learning, right? It's just you take out the.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was sort of a bad name for it, but I didn't really have a say in that. Maybe it's supposed to be cool, kids LOL, and
Yeah, of course.
maybe it's supposed to be like cool and hip,
Yeah.
and I just didn't get it either. But
so they merged and they're still working together then.
And then that continued to I think it actually merged again to Southern New Hampshire University.
Okay.
But those games, unfortunately really aren't, I think they live somewhere on a website, but they're not really, being pushed. I don't know if you can really access them anymore.
Okay. And then from there, is that when you then made the move over to Games for Change?
So no, actually when, because a lot of that, the sort of that merge happened and we started to do different things, there's actually major layoffs. So I was laid off.
Okay.
And then it's sort of funny, I guess, in hindsight, because I just so happened, it was like in August and we were already going on a vacation to Nantucket, which probably wasn't like, the smartest thing to do when you don't have a job and it's not really the cheapest place to go. But that's where I actually ran into another ESA consultant in Nantucket who was like, "What are you doing now? Great to see you." Right. And I was like, "Funny you should ask. I don't know what I'm doing."
Hanging out here on Nantucket. Nantucket, you can only ride bikes, right? There's no cars on Nantucket. Is that right?
There's cars. Okay. Oh my God, there's amazing cars. Like all these old school, Wagoneers or FJ40s, FJ60s.
Is it Martha's Vineyard? I thought one of the islands off the point there, like that
golf carts.
Yeah,
maybe,
I thought that.
Yeah, it has that feel to it that very pristine and.
But it also slows life down because it's smaller, right? And it's quaint, and there are a lot of people there over the summer from July through August, but it's beautiful. I love it over there. So you were there, you ran into this individual from ESA as well.
Yeah, he was an old consultant. And he was like, why don't you, he was the chairman of the board, he still is, at Events DC, and said, I really want DC to be a hub for eSports, and they are the official convention authority for DC. So they're a quasi-government entity, all about economic impact, driving economic impact for the city, and wanted to leverage eSports, that market in DC. So I was like,
when was this? Because this sounds to me like they were almost a little bit ahead of the curve, because a lot of cities have not jumped on until just recently, unless it's a city like LA or maybe Houston or Dallas or Seattle, or where there's a lot of esports and gaming companies. But there's, like down here in South Florida, we're just getting into that in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm. So when was that DC, and was it a lot, do you think, because there's the groups that you had worked with before were in the government or around the government, were advocating for the gaming industry, so they're aware of it?
So this is probably like 3 years ago.
Okay, so not that long ago. Okay.
Not that long ago. I was there for 2 years. I've only been at Games for Change for about a year.
Okay.
Maybe 18 months. But I guess so DC was already working with Monumental Sports and Entertainment Group to build an arena that was going to be for all of the Mystics, the women, the WNBA team, for all
By the way, I'm going to jump in just quickly there. The Leonsis, right? Not the Leonsis, the owners. So one of the reasons I'm in esports and gaming today was because of a podcast that I listened to with Paul Rabel, where he was talking to Zach Leonsis, and Zach said that his father, Ted, said that esports was going to be bigger than the NFL in the next 5 to 10 years. And I was like, what? And I didn't really know. This is 3 years ago. I didn't know that much about esports and gaming at that time. I was working with the Miami Marlins. So I was like, okay, I got to pay attention to this space, because these guys own the Mystics. They own the Capitals. They own the Wizards. And they own 2 Arena League teams. And they're owners of, is it Team Liquid?
Yeah.
So I was like, from that moment on, every day of mine for like the last 3 years has been involved. So you worked together with them, or you worked with them through this Events DC?
Yeah, so I was at Events DC, but we worked with Monumental Sports Entertainment Group on this arena because it was also going to be where the Wizards had a practice facility.
Okay.
So outside of the WNBA games, we had access to help program the arena. And so and it was a smaller arena, and so we thought it'd be a good fit for eSports tournaments.
When you say smaller, 2,500, 5,000?
I think 4,000.
4,000 capacity, okay.
I remember.
Okay.
Yeah, that number used to be around the top of my head, and I forgot.
Okay.
But by the way, Paul Rabel is also from Gaithersburg, Maryland.
I have to
His
text him
brother
after
went
this.
to his brother went to our high school and is good friends with my brother-in-law. But Paul went to the fancy private school.
Yeah, and then he went to Hopkins. I think they're doing amazing things with the PLL, so it's great to see that. I think you mentioned that last time we talked that you knew those guys. Yeah. So we digress a little bit, but yeah. So Events DC, you worked together on the arena. Does the arena have a name? Like, would I know the name?
It's funny. It was called the Entertainment Sports Arena, which was also referred to as ESA, which is my former employer. So I guess it gets a little confusing. Yeah,
for sure. Okay, so you worked with them. Sounds like they're doing some pretty good stuff right now too. They're not just doing esports and gaming events. They're doing all types of events for the entire city of DC and the Triangle.
Yeah. Their main focus is really, heads and beds and getting people to DC and creating the programming that is going to make people fly here or stay here.
So they're basically a CVB. They're the CVB for DC, Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they, we sponsored teams. We sponsored a team called NRG. So I got to do a lot of sort of activations with esports players. We did a big announcement at South by Southwest with Team Liquid and NRG doing like a show match. And then, really the heart of esports is the community stuff. So, and supporting, people that built the industry, the people that are creating it. So that was sort of, I guess, the work I was driving was the community-based support.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. So did they recruit you over to Games for Change, or were you ready for another move at that point?
I guess a little bit of both. I had a child and my first daughter when I was at Events DC.
Okay.
I came back from maternity leave, and it was actually just it was just not the same job. Like the role had sort of felt like it didn't exist anymore. It was just actually, honestly, not the most ideal probably story to tell other young women, getting back into the workforce after being on maternity leave. Mm-hmm. It was not how I expected it to go down.
But things can change. How long were you on maternity leave? 3 months, 6 months?
4.
Longer? 4 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the culture just wasn't conducive to, I didn't really have a place to pump at first. I couldn't really work from home at all anymore. The rules kind of changed, it seemed. So it was I actually had to take some, stand up for some of that in a way that was uncomfortable. But I didn't want anyone else to have to go through it. It was funny because I'd worked really with Games for Change for my entire career.
Okay.
And, we worked with them at ESA. I worked with them. They were actually in our first cohort at Glass Lab working with us. They were working, one of the board members of Glass Lab was also consulting for the Events DC stuff.
Okay.
So I'd always sort of, not even realizing it, been in touch with them. And I was sort of looking to make another move, but I was pregnant again.
Quick.
It's totally the best time to be looking for a job when you're 4 months pregnant or 5 months pregnant, but it worked out great. And it was a fairly smooth transition. Nonprofit work definitely is probably the hardest job I've had now, the hardest I've worked. Okay. I didn't realize, I don't think how hard nonprofit, people really work, hands-on, grassroots.
So now you have, it sounds like you have a 2.5-year-old and maybe a 1-year-old or somewhere around that range.
Yeah. 11-month-old and a 2.5-year-old.
Okay. So you've got two very young kids and you're working with an organization where you may be working the hardest you've ever worked in your life. So there's obviously a lot of energy that's being taken, and now you've got the pandemic. So you've got the kids with you, which in a way probably, it can be a good thing, right? Because you're right there all the time, but it's also difficult to step away because the kids are going to always be there.
We do have a nanny, luckily.
Okay.
I actually don't know how I get anything done if we didn't have a nanny.
Yes, yeah, that's huge. So, okay, so let's jump into Games for Change then. What exactly does Games for Change do? It sounds like, and it's Susanna Pollock, right? Did she start the organization, or is she the executive director or president, or how does the org chart work?
Yeah, she is the president of Games for Change and has been running the organization for probably the last 5+ years.
Okay.
She's not one of the founders of it. She came from the media side of things, and has just been crushing it. I mean, right. I think, has one of the coolest reputations around, using games to solve real world problems, using games, to improve education, to improve health, to improve, social issues.
So is that the overall mission statement is for, and it's G for C or Games for Change? You can say either one, yes?
Yes, you can say either one.
Okay.
The overall mission is empowering game developers and social innovators to use games to drive real world change.
Okay.
That might be not verbatim, but
yeah, I'm sure it's on the website if somebody wants to find it.
yeah.
But some of the things you're doing, so tell me about a number of the things that you have as far as initiatives go. One is the Games for Change Festival. How is that going to be affected? Are you guys still, is that an event where you do it at a specific location and everybody shows up, and now you're going to have to online and virtual and digital, or are you still planning on hosting this for 2020 in its location?
We are going virtual. We have traditionally, for the last 17 years, had this festival in New York City.
Okay.
It's really grown from, like a half-day festival to a full-day festival to now it's really, over usually 4 days,
yep.
If not longer. And we focus on different tracks. We have kind of an XR piece. We have an XR summit, so just meaning immersive media, AR, VR, mixed reality. And then we have the different tracks in education, health, and then civic and social issues.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about that XR side of things.
That's probably the side I know the least about.
Okay.
But it's a part of the games industry that, was obviously percolating, this is several years ago now, but, and we realized we needed to sort of incorporate it under our umbrella of topics and things that are touching the video game community. So it was work that, and essentially it's, what I guess I can say is that it still, empowers people making XR content to think about using it in real world, and which it kind of lends itself to anyways. A lot of the XR stuff we were seeing really was lending itself in health, for example, or ways that were helping people. So it was interesting that automatically had more of that kind of look and feel to it versus the content side that we were seeing in games. But we would, as part of the festival, we'd usually have a brain jam where we'd bring sort of an expert in to give a prompt to game developers. So different teams from Ubisoft would come with other teams, developers, and work on a real world problem that researchers, kind of like the Fold It thing, here's the facts, here's the research, and help find a solution, sort of help create a game around this topic.
So that's a brain jam. So they come in, they give a topic, and you break out into teams and try to come up with a solution in an hour, 3 hours. It's a whole day project.
2 days, usually 2 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
you're sleeping at night. You're not pulling all-nighters. It's very civilized.
Yeah. But do a lot of good things. Do you see a lot of good things coming from those collaborations?
Yeah. I know some of the projects even that Ubisoft worked on, they were trying to continue working on internally. I can't even remember what it was. So
Okay.
it's sort of a bad story.
Okay. Well, let's jump over to, because I'm really interested in this specifically because I have kids at 11 and 14, but the student challenge. So you have the student challenge, which invites students in from all over the country. How do they get selected? And then how do they either choose or are told what the real issues are in the community that they need to work on?
So anyone can enter their game at the end of the challenge, which is kind of wrapping up right now. It's pretty much in line with the whole school year. Okay. So anyone in the country can submit their game. We have all the information on our website. And just to, I guess, back up, the Student Challenge program, we teach middle school and high school students how to code, but around certain topics, so that align with our mission, which is that drive real world change. So we work with different theme partners who are the content experts, so that kids are making a game about, it can really be about anything. Lady Gaga Foundation did one on kindness and empathy. New York Mayor's Office did one on diversity and inclusion. We're working with the Truth Initiative right now on anti-smoking and anti-vaping. We have others on climate change, or really it could be almost any topic.
Yeah, I'm looking on your website right now, and it says 20 social impact themes: a clean and happy earth, get the party started, which I have no idea what that means.
Oh, politics. Democrat,
okay. Oh, get the party started. Got it. All right. Endangered species, disrupting aging, wildlife conservation, connected cities, news. I mean, it's fantastic. That's why, I mean, to me, this is amazing, the stuff you guys are doing. And I'd love to see what comes out of that. Do we have any access to any of the projects that have happened in the past, and or are any of those projects that the students in the games, the kids are building games around these projects. Are they available to us now so that we can play them or see them?
We have our Student Challenge Awards ceremony coming up, which used to be in person.
Okay.
But this year will be virtual. So yes, you will be able to see at least this year's games. We have categories like best gameplay, most innovative, best learning game, a whole bunch of other topics. So we have a whole jury process where we get experts, gamers, studios to all come in and judge the games. A lot of cool prizes are given out from the industry. Take-Two gives checks to all the winners of for $1,000. And usually students are making this a game with maybe 3 other students. So it's usually not individual projects, but it can be.
And these just so I'm clear, these are actually run through the schools, not like an after-school program. Like, it's not just 4 friends that are just saying, hey, we want to do this. Typically, they're done actually through a school, and maybe there's an advisor at the school, or is it just, how's that work?
So the model's been where we have kind of a city-based approach. We have anchor partners right now in Atlanta, Detroit, New York, and LA.
Okay.
And the anchor partners are the ones who are really on the ground, that have relationships with schools and are able to help us run the program. Because what we do is we go in at the beginning of the year and have a 2-day professional development available for teachers to go in and learn our game design curriculum that they're able to then use throughout the school year.
Okay.
And so there's sort of these cohorts of schools that are really, using our Student Challenge program. We also go in and have game jams and events where you don't have to be in one of those schools to have access to this learning. Right. So kids are able to go to the New York Public Library or another, venue and spend the day still learning how to make a game, doing all the fun, mod tic-tac-toe or mod rock, paper, scissors, and understand just how to start thinking like a game designer.
Okay. And those anchor partners, you named 4 cities. Are they private companies? Are they school districts? Are they municipalities?
It really just depends. In Georgia, we have Georgia Tech.
Okay.
In LA, we have 2-Bit Circus, which is more of like a foundation. So it just, what we look for is people that have existing relationships with schools and with teachers.
Okay.
That are able to help us recruit the teachers to the professional development.
Okay.
And when we started this program 5 years ago, most teachers didn't have, like, learning how to code and understanding how to bring that into the classroom was really foreign. So like, it's becoming more popular now, which is why we've opened it up to anyone. We're in pretty much, I think 75% of Title I schools too.
Okay. I would love to see that in South Florida. I don't know. I mean, down here, I know that NACE has been doing some things, and I think it's NACE. But do you guys collaborate with? Is all of this on your own? Obviously, you're collaborating with the cities and those entities that are localized, right, in those areas. But do you collaborate at all with other non-for-profits and institutions?
Yeah. We just sort of reconnected with Black Girls Code not that long ago, and are, wanting to be more helpful and just sharing the stuff that we're, just getting on more people's, I guess, radar and distribution, because there's such a crossover of what we're all trying to do. So yeah, I think, it really does take a village. We're not trying to do this on our own by any means.
And where does the funding come from?
A lot of the funding that we get is from grants. And a lot of those grants will have specific cities that they want to focus on. So that's why we're sort of in those cities.
Okay.
But, generally it's grants.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a big part of when you were talking about, non-for-profit, and there's a lot of work involved. That's one of the big areas, right? Is you obviously have to have what you guys are doing is incredible, and you have to have it funded. If it's not funded, all of a sudden everybody becomes volunteers, and can only keep volunteers for so long. People need to. Yeah.
I mean, if corporate partners are helpful the theme partners are helpful, because oftentimes if a corporate partner doesn't necessarily have STEM, like, it's not obvious, they're able to have like a STEM philanthropic effort by working with us, because we're able to teach the STEM part around their topic.
Okay.
So for example, like, this isn't one that's real, but like if Wells Fargo or like a financial institution wanted to say that we care about STEM, we're able to take financial literacy and have that as a theme for our kids to work on.
Yeah, that's a fantastic theme, by the way.
Yeah,
that's
especially
one that should
right now. People are like, "Are the stocks? What are stocks? Are they crashing?" Yeah. Like, kids.
Well, and just I've always talked about it, and it's going to be interesting to see how this changes over time. But it used to be that you had to be able to balance a checkbook, and most kids can't come out of high school or college and they don't even know how to balance a checkbook. I don't know if checkbooks are going to be around much longer, so that might, it might not be something that's a necessary.
To balance their Venmo.
Yeah, exactly. But you still need to know what's in your bank account. You still need to know, if you've got $10,000 in your bank account, you spend $12,000, you're in trouble. So understanding that, and then understanding how to have your money work for itself, and all those things you're just talking about that you could kind of gamify again and work with somebody like Wells Fargo. I think that would be fantastic as far as money management. What other resources do you guys provide aside from what we're talking about right there? And then as far as events go coming up, you did mention that you had your award ceremony, but you do a lot of these things on a cyclical basis, right? They're annualized. So how does your calendar work? So resources, and then what are the upcoming events?
I'm not sure what you mean by resources.
Well, I only said resources because I'm cheating, and I'm on your website, and it says teacher resources and student resources. So that's the only reason I brought that up. And I'm assuming basically that's probably a lot of what you do to educate people on game development.
Yeah, I think what you're looking at is going to have resources on that theme. So we take a lot of the existing resources that like Truth Initiative has and just kind of repackage them maybe a little bit. And so those are the resources that the kids have access to learn about smoking or vaping, or about, automated cities, or disruptive aging, or getting the party started.
Right. And the events that you guys do, so then we'll go into your calendar and your event. Is there a fee for them to be in the student challenge? Is there any charge for that?
No, it's free. I mean, we have to pay a license fee for our curriculum right now. So we do have to find funding to kind of offset some of the fees that we incur so that we break even. But it's free for the students.
Okay. And I'm assuming it goes on the school year. So you're finishing up your student challenge right now, and the winners will be announced, you said, at the end of the month, or they've already been announced?
Soon. They'll be announced in the next couple weeks.
Okay. And then you make those announcements at your award show.
Yeah.
And then everybody takes the summer off, or do you guys have resources over the summer? And then for the next student challenge, do you look to register and sign groups up in August, September, October, or when is the sign up time?
Yeah. I mean, we try to start recruiting, I guess, over the summer. We do the professional development over the summer where we train the teachers. And so that when we essentially run, with the school year. So it'll kick off officially, during the school year for kids. And then we end it right before school ends as well. Right. But a lot of the work obviously done ahead of time to get the corporate partners and the theme partners on board, to get the teachers, in cities on board. So it's, there's the actual timeline of what we're doing, but then the work is of course happening like all the time around.
Right. Right. And so talking about spotlight cities, because you mentioned 4 of them. If I wanted to today, whether through myself, through Ultimate Gamer, through my kids' school, through any of the partnerships, relationships that I have, if I wanted to try to bring in, would I become, the word cohort always throws me off. I mean, I'm saying collaborate. Okay. So for us to bring Games for Change down here, how would I go about doing that, or how would somebody else go about doing that? Are you guys actively looking to get into, let's say, Chicago or Houston or Denver or Fort Lauderdale, Miami, those kind of cities, to advance the program out there more into the community?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And in fact, we're in a bunch of conversations with, Denver, Chicago, Seattle. I don't know if we've talked to anyone in Florida, so maybe we should talk offline. Yeah. About who you might think would be interested. But, it's really just a matter of funding. And I don't know if I can really talk about some of the stuff we're doing internally, but we're trying to figure out other models to reduce the barrier to entry for cities to, have access to the curriculum that we offer. So we're hoping to make it more accessible, more, more available.
Yeah, and that's all about scaling. Because of what we're going through virtually and digitally, do you think this actually might be helping you accelerate that?
Absolutely. Right. Yeah.
Because people are becoming more used to working in this fashion. But I also see a lot of what you guys do, the value. It sounded like you said you do these different events, not just to spotlight cities, but all these, what they call them, you call them jams, right?
Did I? Game jams?
Game jams, yeah. What are game jams?
It's a chance for people to, or students to work on games. They, work in groups. They, what's cool about the Student Challenge program and what I guess game jams offer is that kids are putting their own voice and perspective on topics.
Right.
So when I was at the game jam at the New York Public Library, and it was on diversity and inclusion, I sat down with a table of girls who were making a game about being pulled over, by a police officer, and then depending on the color of your skin, different things happen. And, it's a little bit of a moment where you're like, oh, wow, you understand where kids are coming from. And when you talk about diversity, like where their minds go, so that you can have a conversation that they want to have, not what we think they're thinking and what we think they want to have, we as like adults, right. Or, and so it's a way to just talk to kids, and so they're jamming, they're talking to another girl or boy or, next to them about the topic. in a way that they're having to then kind of create something together. So it's a way to just kind of, I don't know, I feel like the name sort of says it.
Yeah, no, it totally does. It kind of reminds me, the way you just said that, it reminds me of a conversation I just had with my wife and kids the other day. My wife is working on a mindfulness project, and she wants to have a message to the kids at the end of the year. So she came to my two kids and said, who would be 3 people that you would listen to a message from, whether they're athletes, entertainers, and neither one of my kids could come up with anything, because I think she was trying to lead them too much, and then I was actually giving them names. And instead, one of our friends said, why don't you just ask them like who they'd like to, what concert they would like to go to or something like that, instead of like, who would you listen to for a message? Because it's just not how their brains are working. So it's kind of like you were saying, let them be the ones to create that communication for themselves and jam together, because they're going to talk and share things differently than if an adult is the one who's leading the entire conversation.
Yeah. And they only have a short amount of time to do it. So they can't overthink it too much. They just are kind of, getting out that initial, then what do they say, your like initial idea is usually like the right, maybe it's on a test, it's usually the right thing, but usually that first thing you put out there.
Yeah, for sure. You're the first answer is usually the right one, but also in brainstorming, I think a lot of times in brainstorming sessions, you just throw things out. You don't worry about it being right or wrong. You throw it out, and sometimes those end up being the best ideas. What we've obviously talked about a lot is that what am I, if there's anything specifically right now that I'm missing that that I haven't asked any questions about, whether it's games for change related or just things that you see in the esports and gaming industry right now that you think are really exciting and fun.
You asked a lot of questions. I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Well, I'll ask you one. I can ask you one question while you're thinking about that. That's a little bit easier to answer. I saw you again on your LinkedIn. It can't be on your LinkedIn. It must be on your Twitter profile. Where you're drinking a beer. And I had someone on yesterday, and she was a big Scotch. She likes good Scotch, smoky Scotch. She likes beer. She's a cat lover. But I like barley wines, and I like certain beers. You're drinking that beer. Do you even remember what that beer was? Do you have a favorite? Because where you are is a good place for microbreweries and good beer.
Yeah, I think that was sort of an après ski beer. We had gone skiing, and then I just feel like gotta have you're thirsty,
Yeah, you just by a fireplace and just grab one. So that's a interesting topic, the skiing. So you're a skier. Do you see anything in the gaming industry around some of those active sports like that?
Obviously I think a lot of people saw the iNASCAR stuff that kind of happened recently, and we're fascinated by that. I live in a big sailing town, so I think a few friends are texting me like, I just did a virtual sailing regatta, and I was like, that sounds sort of like, I don't know. I had a harder time connecting those two, but I don't know.
Did they think it was a good experience?
Yeah, I think they thought it was better than nothing, I guess.
Right.
You got a lot of passionate people out here who like the water, and for me, that's what I love, is just being on the water. If I was, I guess, looking at a picture and kind of feeling like I was on the water would maybe work, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's still a little bit of a way. I think it's getting closer, but that virtual experience is still a little bit away. Last thing I wanted to ask you is just, and I always ask everybody about best practices, about things that they do in their daily lives, because I think people that have had some relatively good experiences in esports, are successful, they can share some thoughts and best practices with people that either don't know how to get into esports, think it's exciting, and just they're wondering what's going on in it. Where do you find your information? Where do you and how often? I mean, you're in it with the organization, and you're always reaching out to people, so I'm sure you have a pretty strong inner circle, but you have resources that you lean on, and just share with us some of that.
Yeah, I definitely have mentors and people that I just sort of call and like talk shop with, pick their brains on what, it's one thing to just read stuff, in the headlines or read certain articles. It's another thing to talk to people who actually work at those companies or who sort of have been in the industry for a while. So I think that's part of the value proposition that I sort of offer being at an organization, right? Is that you can pick up the phone and very quickly, I don't know, get the pulse of certain things or figure out what a right solution might be for this market. And for best practices for folks who are interested in getting involved, I mean, it's, don't ever be afraid to ask is usually I get rejected a lot and I just have to, or ignored a lot maybe, but, not always, sometimes for the most part, some people are like, sure, let's talk, or are happy to help. I think people like to help. But also like know what your skill set is and what you want to do. Don't just say I'm passionate about games, because it's got to be more than that. You got to know like what you're good at and what and build up a skill set. And you can do that in any industry and translate it into games if you can't get into games at first. So go do something else that you think you're good at, and then figure out how to get back into games in a couple years.
Well, and I love that you said that, by the way, because I tell a lot of people when I'm speaking at different events and things that, listen, whatever you do, you can get involved in games, right? The industry has evolved to the point right now where if you're in the healthcare industry, you can actually get into gaming. If you're a chiropractor, if you're in the eye, you're an eye specialist, if you work in the hand, if you're a hand wrist specialist, if you're in the medical field, that is the medical field, if you're in the financial field, if you're an attorney, if you're in marketing, sales, human resources, all those areas right now, any industry is crossing over into the esports and gaming industry because it's become such a big business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't want to keep you all day. I really appreciate everything. What you guys are doing, honestly, I've been a big fan for a while, but I really want to, like we talked about, talk offline and figure out how we can do some more things down here in the South Florida community, because now the universities are starting to come on board. FAU's just started a program recently. FIU has one. University of Miami is still very much in the incubatory stage, I think. Johnson & Wales is looking at it. Barry's got one. Kaiser University. So they're all coming on board. The high schools are now jumping into the fray, and even middle schools. So I think it's perfect timing for what you guys have to offer. And I just think I would love to see my kids be involved in some of these student challenges that you talk about, because it's amazing to me.
Yeah, it's cool to see the kids, learn in, I guess, a connected learning environment.
Yeah, I love that connected learning.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well,
All
thank
right.
you. I'm glad you figured it out. We figured out like how to get on there. Was that your husband that popped in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell him I said hi, and I hope the kids are doing well.
I will. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks, DJ.
Yep.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
I'd like to thank DJ for sharing her time, experience, and knowledge with us today. I can't imagine a better way to apply the problem-solving, out-of-the-box thinking, never give up mentality of gamers than to develop games that search for a cure to cancer, resolve climate change, and defeat COVID-19. You can listen to DJ again, and you can also find